fucking fire!
Make some noise for Porcelain!
My name is Jordan, and I'm 29 years old, and I am a tattooer at Nokaoi Tattoo. I first became interested in tattooing at the age of 18, and I don't think I remember anything from when I was 18, so it was probably just out of rebellion, honestly, and not wanting to go to school. I mainly practiced on myself, and then I had friends. I mean, especially when you're 18, like, any of your friends are down for a free tattoo, and they don't care if it's bad or not. They're just like, whatever, this is cool. So I've worked at definitely quite a few tattoo shops, from the suburbs of Philadelphia to Philly to San Francisco, California. I can't count how many I've actually worked at, but each experience is definitely different. They all kind of have their own vibe, different styles, you know, different walks of life. So each shop is definitely always different than the other. I was definitely playing the straight dude role at my first apprenticeship, and then once I found out I had a partner, they fired me. I was upset, of course, at first, but I didn't understand that that happened, and then it just made me think, oh, well, if this little thing happened to me, then like other people, I'm sure, are way harshly more discriminated against. So it was just like a chance to find a better spot to practice. I mean, honestly, my favorite part about tattooing is just getting to do art for a living and just like meeting very interesting people along the way. I've always been intrigued by just people and their stories, so it was like being an introvert, being into art, and then just having like an intimate experience and just like hopefully making them happy. Once the paint's on, the hips are on, the butt's on, you know, you just feel yourself. So really, anything can happen, and I mean anything. So I started doing drag about the time I finished my tattoo apprenticeship, and I was really broke, and I went to some weird nightclub in the middle of Pennsylvania, but I remember it was the first time I ever saw a drag queen, which I feel like now people see drag queens like way earlier on. And her name was Jamaica Lynn Stevens, and she sounded like Danny DeVito, and I loved it. And I just saw her on stage, and she just like, totally inspired me. And this was total like backwoods style drag, so I was like, before I do this in the city, I'm gonna come out here and do it. So my first gig was, I think it was York, Pennsylvania. I've always been introverted, but in my early 20s, it was probably not the case. I was, if anything, more timid, and I was definitely in the middle of introverted, extroverted, but getting into drag with that's probably what helped me become more extroverted, but only in that paint, if you will, to like put on a different face and really be who you want to be, and it could be totally opposite of who you are in general. So it's kind of like a fun little like vacation from yourself, basically. So I just became this like raging, crazy person. Hate or discomfort from people just came from their own insecurities. So it could be anyone from just like going to the gig while you're walking down the street, or just like getting harassed by whoever. But I mean, unfortunately, a lot of people deal with that in general. So, especially when you're just dressing, you know, not you know, normal, if you will. My family was, if anything, more confused. Like, I don't think they really knew much about drag or where I was going with it. And then, of course, the question of like, well, do you want to be a woman? And I had to explain to them like gender expression and all that. And this is just something I enjoy doing. But either way, if I want to be or not, you know, this is who I am. Tattooing and drag definitely like intersected really well with helping one or the other, especially with like learning how to pretty much reconstruct your face. Definitely transferred into how I would look at the shading and value in tattooing. And it definitely made me more confident with talking to people, because like when you're, of course, in nightlife, you're just like feeling the whole scene, and you kind of have, you're forced in a more social setting. So I think it definitely gave me more confidence being a drag queen than going in a tattoo shop and like knowing that I'm not in a nightclub. I don't think it's something I'll ever give up or quit. It's just a matter of realistically how am I gonna pay my bills sometimes, which like sucks to say. And that's great that I have tattooing, because at least it's expression, and I'm very lucky to have that. But with drag, it's hard to do on the daily, and what you put out, sometimes you just don't get back. So it's not always as like rewarding for me, the drag versus tattooing, but it'll always be there.
Who the fuck are you to question me about my life? I'm a ghost of the machine. I never...
So my band Fruit Punch, sadly we broke up, RIP, but I joined when I was probably 15 years old, and I didn't know how to drum. I was a drummer in the band, and I was in a really shitty punk rock band playing guitar, and my friend Steve, who brought me into Fruit Punch, was like, hey, you suck guitar, do you want to join our band? I was like, but you said I sucked. He's like, but I'm gonna teach you something else. I was like, cool. They were all older than me, already out of high school, so they were like, well, a requirement is to have an open schedule to tour. I was like, yeah, no problem, I can skip school.
There's no fucking hope. Open your eyes.
And it was, funny enough, it was a queer band. The bassist is a trans man, and I wasn't even out at the time, so I was in a queer band, and I was just like, I kind of used that as my coming out without even saying anything to anybody. Even though like I wasn't out, I was still like totally like, this is awesome, I'm in a queer band. I didn't even really know what that word meant when I was 15. I was like, but I knew generally. And then when we went on like our first like big tour outside of the state, that's when I like, my first real introduction to like the queer community. Like I was still in senior year of high school, and that was 2008. So I was like, I don't know what any of this means, but it's fucking cool. I'm all about it. To any aspiring drag queen or tattooist, just do it. Like, don't let anything stop you. I mean, you just have to be passionate about it. As long as you're passionate and have good intentions, then do it. So my name is Jordan, and this is my strange addiction.